Hello, folks. Today is April 19th. This is the North American time zone friendly meeting at noon Eastern time. The Hack MD is in the chat, so please put your name, etc. Right. So without further ado, does anyone have a status update? Even if you haven't written it yet, feel free to give it. We'll pause a moment. Many of our maintainers are in Beijing and are sleeping right now. So of course we do not have the usual status updates that we have when they are present. So I'll count to 5 in my head. And if no one has any status updates, then we'll move on to discussion topics.
Hi, I can give a brief update here. I was just trying to find a link that I'm not prepared, so I don't have the link ready. So for docs, I'm just plugging away on 1.9 docs. We have a lot of issues for improvements to the docs for 1.9 setup, and which we have a documentation board that I can send a link in the chat for, and we can add it to the docs if you want to know what we're updating for 1.9. And there's one PR in particular I wanted to call out to the community, and that's for a update to the side navigation on the side of the website. So we're trying to refine what's there to make it a little more updated. I'm not sure if we've actually looked into it since we published the website. So just making sure that all the pages show up in the side navigation, and kind of rearranging some things that show up there. This would be more useful if I had the link, which I will look for right now.
I have here, so I just grabbed it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
What I'll do is I'll put it in the chat, and then Abby, you can add it to the HackMD after, and I'll just point out handy dandy things. So as Abby said, yeah, this is to like make the table of contents easier to read. And Abby did something wonderful. She not only made the PR, but also there's a link here where you can view the preview. So you can look at this, it's clickable, and you can compare it to what's currently there. I left some comments, but boy, would we love hearing comments from folks who use Velero regularly, just to see if it's a more intuitive table of contents. So Abby, back to you.
Yeah, no, that's all I wanted to highlight for today. It's still a draft, the PR still a draft. So we're still figuring out some kinks and making sure that everything is right and will be moving us forward for the project. But if you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Thank you.
Any questions for Abby? Okay, we'll move on to discussion topics. Abby, definitely for status update, if you want to type that out for folks who are not present, that would be great. 2 discussion topics. One, so KubeCon North America, the CFP I think opened in March, and it ends May 27th. Boy, I could have put more information. I'll do that after whenever someone else is talking. The reason I want to bring it up is that the VMware folks, all of our maintainers are in China now, but they're certainly interested in pairing on something that, they would have to do a virtual talk, but we might submit a CFP. But we're really interested in kind of collaboration, because it's just more interesting when it's not just one company representing Velero. We've got a really diverse corporate diversity, very diverse, whatever. I can't get the words right. Anyways, all that's to say is if anyone here has any interest in pairing with us at VMware to do kind of submit a CFP, we can submit multiple ones. Anyone who wants to submit their own absolutely should as well. The more folks talk about Velero, the better. But feel free to say now if you want, or you can ping me, or probably Daniel will be the point of contact. But okay, I see Sean has his hand up. Go for it.
Is there a list of talks that you're looking for already? Or is this like, we also want to figure out the topics for the talks and collaborate on the full thing?
It's real. Yeah. So good question. For sure, anyone who has a talk they want to talk about, like, let's do that. I will, and I'll do this I'll mention that in the past, just to kind of get the creative juice going. In the past topics, which have not been accepted, so take this with a grain of salt, have been like, Velero or Velero 101. Oh, sorry. I'll list past topics and I'll list the feedback we got. So Velero 101, we tried to do like what data protection do you need for Kate's? And then we were thinking about kind of Astrolabe when we were more focused on that. So these are like two examples of what we could cover. Another, and I'll mention that the feedback we kind of got was that KubeCon does not really, or the CNCF doesn't want single vendor like promotion. They don't want random vendors coming to be like, use my product. So it sounds like the Velero 101 is actually a particularly bad idea because it's promoting Velero. It seems to me like if it's like, hey, let's talk about data protection and then mention Velero a little bit, that would be more along the lines of what they're looking for. That being said, that proposal was not accepted, but maybe a different would be. And an idea that I know Daniel had, so one idea is if basically something around the data mover. I mean, we are hopefully by October, we'll have some sense of what we're doing with data mover. It might be really cool to talk about how do you do migration of data or how do you move data around Kubernetes? Why is that useful? Data protection, migration, et cetera. So data mover something. So does that answer your question? If you have an idea, go for it. If you want ideas, possibly something with data mover, but that we have heard that we should avoid single vendor selling in the talk. Okay. Any other questions or comments for that? Oh, sorry. Let me, one moment. So if you are interested, so please reach out on -dev or ping Daniel, Jane or Eleanor. And to be clear, it's not like that, Dan. It's not because Daniel and I control Velero. It's just merely from the VMware side, we're interested in doing this. So reach out if you want to pair with VMware on this Velero idea. Feel free to reach out. Totally welcome to do on your own as well. So, any last? Yeah, please.
Could you give me some more detail about what is single vendor selling? Just curious.
Good question. And with Orlin actually is really involved in the CNCF. So really great question to maybe save till next week when he's here. I think it's the idea, I think it's in general the idea that they don't want, especially like for-profit vendors being like, let me tell you about my product. Kind of like, just like, it's like a commercial almost for their product is what the talk is. Velero, I'm surprised they say that about because we're open source. And I think of us as like actually helping the whole community, but I think that we still fall under that. This is just kind of like low key stuff I've heard from VMware folks who have been involved in like reviewing CFP proposals. So it's this idea that they want to hear things that kind of seem to apply to all of Kubernetes, not that focus on a particular vendor. So it shouldn't be Velero this, Velero that. It should be data protection Kubernetes, data movement in Kubernetes, migration in Kubernetes. Oh, and by the way, at the end, we might mention that Velero does it. So does that, that's my understanding, but definitely Orlin might be able to say more next week.
And you guys are open for panel discussions, demos, everything, right?
Absolutely. With the caveat that on the VMware side, we might not be able to do it in person, but it's also fine to like apply somewhere and you can always have like wheel drop out or yes. The short answer is yes, we're open to everything.
Good.
Great. I think, let's put it this way. It takes like a couple hours to submit this. Like I've done 4 now and all 4 have been failures, but you write like a 1 paragraph blurb, you write another paragraph about how it applies to the ecosystem. It's worthwhile to give it a try, I think. Okay, and now our favorite topic, data mover design. At the minimum, I want this to be an advertisement for what I think it was Shubham posted. So if you all click into that Slack link, which of course I can't show you. Anyways, basically, oh yeah, here, I'll bring up the PR. So Shubham and the other, actually, sorry, Shubham, do you just want to talk about this and advertise what this is and why people should look at it instead of me speaking for you?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So this is like the accumulation of whatever everyone involved in the data mover discussions have come to an agreement. so that we move forward with the implementation, or like move forward with the design of the API interface. So this contains the problem statement, the motivation, the use cases, and the user workflows. So before this had the CSI bits, I have removed everything, and this is now like agnostic to all the Kate is object agnostic. So this is something which everyone agreed upon. So I was thinking that we at Red Hat were thinking that if this is something we can agree upon and get this merged, then we can have different discussions about the interface.
Let me be the first to say thank you so much for going back and kind of doing the hard work of integrating what we discussed and kind of clarifying. So thank you. And I see the diagrams look awesome. VMware, at least on the VMware side, I was just talking to Daniel and Jalin this morning. And so they're already starting to look at it. And our hope is to finish our review by early next week, but hopefully you'll keep getting comments. So at least our eyes are on it. Thank you. I'd encourage everyone else who kind of represents a stakeholder to please, please, please look at it in the next few days and try to get your feedback in by early next week so we can keep kind of digesting and moving on.
Yeah, and one more thing, that this doesn't contain anything regarding the interface design. This is just what we would say use cases and requirements.
Very good call out. So and I think you said this, let me just repeat this. Our goal is to kind of make sure we're all aligned on this. That's what the feedback will be. Once we're all aligned on this, then you or someone will figure out who will take a stab at the interface next.
We don't want to go back and forth on this, right? Once again.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that this is a really great idea. First use cases alignment, then interface alignment, and then those who care will probably work on some kind of generic data mover or different data movers. Yep. So I think that's a great progression. Let me pause. Shubham, I don't know if you want to say more, or are there other folks' questions, comments?
I know, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Questions for other stakeholders here. Do you think that it's reasonable by early next week for you to review this and put any comments in that you have? VMware and Red Hat are kind of aligned on early next week.
Yeah, no, so Fong's out for next few days, but yeah, we'll start reviewing.
Okay. And that's fine then, especially if Fong's going to be back next week and we'll review next week. I'm sure we can extend it by a few days, just knowing that it's just, okay. So what I would say is if you have that plan, if you can like post that maybe or something, if you plan to have him review that would be great to call out. Well, I will wait, kind of give a few more seconds to see if anyone wants to talk about data mover stuff, and a few more seconds for anyone else to put any other discussion topics. Otherwise, we might end quite early. So I'll do a.
Oh, I have one question.
Oh yeah. Oh please. Yeah.
So so I just it was just a bug that was raised. So general question: does I guess Velero, if I back up Kubernetes version 1.19 or 1.20, can it be restored to 1.21? Is that supported? Maybe a wrong forum here. I don't know if I need Daniel and team, but question anyway.
I do not know the answer. I have an idea of where to find. Anyways, I'm going to open it up to the field. Does anyone else here know?
I think it depends. If it works, it works.
Yeah, so we always, I mean, it is, right.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're talking about backing up on an older version and restoring to a newer version, that's one of those things that really should always work, because one of the stated, I mean, I don't know what's tested. That's a different question that we should ask. But that's one of the things that we've always said that Velero can be used for is for upgraded situations. So you back up on the older cluster and you restore on the newer. Now, if you're backing up on a new cluster and restoring to an older one, that's possibly more problematic. And I'm not sure we would say that is it supposed to work, but again, I'm less sure there.
Yeah, actually, maybe I misspoke. So yeah, so the backup was from 121 and restored to 120. So it's the other way around, which is technically not guaranteed to work. But just wanted to check if anyone has
the only thing that I can think about that you would maybe run into that you should think about is if you have either CRDs or if there's any API deprecations and removals that have happened that you are using in the old cluster. So when you go to the new cluster, those APIs won't be available. when you try to restore those objects, they're obviously not going to be able to be restored. So that would be the only thing that I could add to this that would potentially be something to consider, just to make sure that, you know, if you're not running into any of those situations.
Yeah, so we tried it and it's not working. We're having issues with endpoint discovery.
And just to clarify, because I think I made a wrong assumption. I think this was initially misstated, and what's not working is downgrading, not upgrading. So it's a backup on 121 and a restore on an older cluster. Is that what we're talking about?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I don't know if there's an official stance in terms of whether Velero is supposed to support that or not.
I don't think so. That's a very unusual. I've not run into a use case for that, although I'd be curious to hear one. But
yeah,
I don't know if you want to talk about the use case, fair, go for it. If you feel like it's a very unique situation, we don't have to delve into it.
That's one of the things our QA tried. So,
okay.
I mean, so if it is not official supported, we can just go back to that statement. But I just wanted to verify.
And it's possible we should document that. I did want to call out that we have two things kind of in the works that possibly might have answered your question, although maybe not quite. We do in our README on the Velero GitHub. Hopefully, folks do realize we do have this compatibility matrix, and yay. Which, by the way, we should make sure we update for 1.9. I want to make that note. One moment. 1.9 compatibility. Also, we do have a ticket to kind of expand this a little bit with the idea that this one doesn't really say what we actually test. And so it would be great to table for basically talk about what we actually test, which is less than what we think we support. Anyways, okay. You know what? I don't want to read through this, but I'm just saying, be aware that this is if you look in the docs issues, there's only a few.
I just was going to say, I think the kind of compatibility matrix itself is not really that relevant because it's not so much whether, because the version of Velero in question is supported on both 118, right. 119, 120. There may be some cause for some other documentation to say, in other words, if the backup was done on a given Velero version, and a given Kubernetes version, where can you restore it? And the answer may be, it's got to be, same or newer for restore as backup. But you also have the question, not just different cluster versions, but also different Velero versions. If you did backup with Velero 1.6, for example, can you use that backup in Velero 1.7, 1.8? Again, in theory, we should support that kind of thing unless there's a, like the Velero 2 kind of thing where we break backwards compatibility. Because if you have an old backup and then you upgrade Velero, your backups before you upgrade shouldn't become useless to you. So that should work, but it's a question of what's tested and, what versions. But I think going from a newer to an older Kubernetes version is something we explicitly would never test. It might work, it might not. And we probably should state that it's not supported.
Yeah, so that's what I was looking for. I mean, so yeah, this was tested with 1.8, both the backup and restore were done with one. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's not guaranteed restoring to an older version.
Yeah.
You might, if you absolutely have to get this done. So this is not a supported path, to be clear. Everything that everybody said still stands. But if you absolutely have to get something done, you might be able to do something like ignore certain resources on restore to ignore the ones that don't exist to get your app back up and running if you have to do something. Like if you're in between a rock and a hard place and you have to do this, that would be the probable, because everything else I think should mostly work. I think we store a lot of information. We have the ability to go between different V1 beta ones, and that works if I remember correctly. So the real thing would be if the APIs just don't exist, and I would suggest just ignoring those and seeing if you can get it to work at that point. Only if you're in that rock hard place where you have to get something done.
I'm just trying to copy paste what I can. Yeah, so this was the chat that I received.
Okay, well, good question. Sorry, we didn't have quite the answer for you, but still good discussion. I will again wait to see if anyone has any last things they want to discuss today. Well, have a very good day. Our next community meeting will be in a week, but in the evening North America time. So have a good day, folks. We'll see you all in a week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.